counsel, wisdom, and understanding. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This honorable house is now in session. Good afternoon. Call of the roll.
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Mallow-Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, I heard that, Ms. Grange, Ms. Lee.
Statement by ministers, House Leader.
Madam Speaker, there is intended to be a statement, or two in fact, by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, which will be taken at a later stage in the proceedings today. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Papers number 26 of 2022 and Annual report of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission for the year 2017, 2018, 2018 and 2019. Annual reports for the Postal Corporation of Jamaica Limited for the years 2019, 2020 and 2020, 2021. Annual report of the Petrojam Limited for the year 2020, 2021. And annual report for eGov Jamaica Limited for the year 2020, 2021. Annual report on audited financial statements of the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority for the year 2019, 2020. Annual report on audited financial statement of the Maritime Authority of Jamaica for the year 2017, 2018. And annual report on audited financial statements of the Aeronautical Telecommunications Limited for the year 2019, 2020. The Auditor General's Department Certified Statement J, Statement of Receipts and Payments of the Contingencies Funds of the Accountant General's Department for the years 2019, 2020 and 2020, 2021. The Integrity Commission Special Report of Investigations conducted re-failure to file statutory declarations with the Commission concerning the following employees of CIRA: Dr. Sean Parkinson and Dr. Sanji Reed. The Integrity Commission Report of Investigation conducted into allegations of impropriety, irregularities, and conflict of interest in the award of contract for the execution of painting works at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, and the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022 and Resolution under the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act.
Bills brought from the Senate.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate to the Honorable House of Representatives. I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 25th day of March 2022, a bill entitled An Act to Apply a Sum out of the Consolidated Fund to the service of the year ending on the 31st day of March 2023, and to appropriate the sums granted in this session of Parliament and for matters connected therewith and related thereto, was passed in the Senate without amendment. Signed, Thomas Tavares Finson, OJCD, QCJP, President of the Senate.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally. Minister Clark.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act, the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022 resolution. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice. No, let's leave it there. Okay. The Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act, the Trust and Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022 resolution. Whereas subsection 1 of section 47 of the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Commission may, with the approval of the Minister, make regulations providing for such matters as may be necessary or expedient for the purposes of this Act. And whereas subsection 2 of section 47 of the Act provides that regulations made under subsection 1 of the section shall be subject to affirmative resolution. And whereas the Commission, with the approval of the Minister responsible for Finance on the 24th day of March 2022, made the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022, and whereas it is desirable that the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulation 2022 be affirmed. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. This resolution may be cited as the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022 resolution, and the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Licensing and Operations Regulations 2022 is hereby affirmed.
Thank you, Minister. Member Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas Bob Marley, born in the deep rural area of 9 Miles in the parish of St. Anne, is a global icon of peace, freedom, and love, his actions towards humanity and his summons of world leaders to focus on their policy decisions to free people from radical oppression, poverty, and war. And whereas his messages have stirred movements for revolutionary social change, which have helped and continue to shape Black consciousness and courage to fight against systems of injustice towards the marginalized and dispossessed in Jamaica and globally. And whereas Bob Marley's lyrical activism for the poor and disenfranchised created a momentum that forced forward progressive social legislation for ordinary working-class Jamaicans and Africans in the 1970s. And whereas Bob Marley has led the peoples of the world to reorganize and accept our Jamaican indigenous reggae music, our indigenous spiritual practices and culture of Rastafarianism. And whereas Bob Marley's work and life have made principled contributions to the recognition of Jamaica internationally, and thereby inspired the Jamaican people to greater appreciation of their own culture and more confidence in their capacities to thrive and overcome. And whereas Bob Marley's One Love, which has been translated into almost every language worldwide, was named the Song of the Millennium, and his 1977 Exodus, the best album of the 20th century. And whereas Bob Marley's kindness, selfless example, and courageous work to empower disenfranchised Black people and other people of color around the world earned him the United Nations Peace Medal of the Third World on behalf of 500 million Africans in 1978. And whereas Bob Marley's contribution as a poet, humanist, nationalist, and Africanist to Jamaican and the global development and international progress has manifested in spheres of human endeavor as diverse as education, religion, tourism, business, sociology, history, identity, and the arts. And whereas Bob Marley is already a global hero for many persons worldwide who have erected statues of his likeness to inspire their people, and whereas the National Honors and Awards Order of National Hero Regulations 1970 provides that the national hero motto is, and I quote, "He built a city which hath foundations," end of quote, which has clearly been evidenced in his life and works of Bob Marley. Be it resolved that this Honourable House, in Jamaica's 60th year of independence, call upon the Governor-General to take the necessary steps for the national honour of Order of National Hero to be conferred on the international crusader for peace, love, and equality, a global superstar, the Honourable Robert Nesta Bob Marley.
Questions and answers to questions? Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice? Motions relating to the sitting of the House? Motions for leave to introduce bills? Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the matters relating to public business today will center around the commencement of the sectoral debate, which traditionally follows the financial debate and is contributed to mainly by ministers, portfolio ministers, in terms of enabling a more granular appreciation of the appropriation bill that was previously passed. Today, as a House Leader, I have the distinct honor, Madam Speaker, of starting off this debate. And in the process, we'll be looking at my own portfolio responsibilities while touching very limitedly on other areas, and more specifically, when closing the debate, to spend a little time on the House itself and how we intend to proceed this fiscal and the years to come. So, Madam Speaker, it is indeed my pleasure and distinct privilege to address this Honourable House on this, the 33rd occasion. Having addressed a budget debate in 1980 and have done so for 9 years during that decade, and then since 2002 to today. Still there, not out. Madam Speaker, you know, I really adore this great chamber, and I really have a lot of deep and abiding commitment and loyalty, not just to the democratic process that it represents, but the rigor that it provides from time to time, notwithstanding the level, of course, of bantering that may come on either side. And we regard that as very solid and good for the purpose of a vigorous debate and very robust discussions and discourses. Madam Speaker, my Ministry of Tourism, I wish to give a fulsome review of our performance in the last year, and then to look at the thoughts as we move forward into this post and immediate pandemic period. Madam Speaker, I do not take this responsibility lightly, nor for granted. I accept it with humility as I continue to serve the people of Jamaica. The year that passed was not an easy one, but with God on our side, we have been on the right track, recovering stronger and sustainably. As a result, Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me to proceed without thanking the Almighty, who is the source of all blessings. I would not be here if it were not for his strength and guidance. I also commend our Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, for his strong leadership during these incredibly challenging times. I thank him for the confidence he has placed in me to lead a ministry that is vital to the survival and growth of this country, as well as the added responsibility of being leader of government business in the House. I am grateful for his continued faith in me to serve alongside my colleagues in the Cabinet. I also want to express my gratitude to you, Madam Speaker, and of course to Madam Speaker herself, wherever she is listening, as well as to you, Madam Deputy Speaker and Acting Speaker, the Clerk of the House. And I really feel honored that as leader of the House, when her appointment was actually made. And Ms. Curtis, we want to congratulate you and to thank you for the wonderful work, the tremendous contribution that you are making to this great Parliament. The hard-working staff of this Honourable House, for the vital role they all play in guiding the activities of our country's legislature. I express my gratitude to my fellow ministers, their staff and government agencies, particularly those who whose work indeed has a direct impact on the Ministry of Tourism. Even if we see things from various viewpoints, we all work together in the best interests of Jamaica. I must acknowledge our Senator Janice Allen, the opposition spokesperson on tourism, for her contribution to the development of the tourism product. Collaboration and the sharing of ideas have indeed been a feature of our relationship since her appointment. And I think that, I'd like to make note of that in this present moment. I would like to thank my permanent secretary, Ms. Jennifer Griffith, who has been very integral to the success of our sector. She has led the ministry diligently with grace and dignity over the years. I really want to thank her because much of the achievements that we talk about in the ministry can be laid at the feet of our permanent secretary, Jennifer Griffith, and the team. I also want to thank the hard-working members of the ministry, every department, every agency of the ministry, all the chairmen, the chairpersons, all the board members, and the executive directors of the various agencies. Indeed, for us, tourism is a family, and the management of it has been a corporate effort. And I really want to share this moment of gratitude, so that it is well recorded by Hansard and everybody else. I also wish to acknowledge our partners and stakeholders in the industry overall for their contribution to the recovery of our very lucrative and essential tourism sector. I especially want to thank the president of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, Mr. Clifton Reeder, and his executive, as well as the past president, Omar Robinson, for their cooperation and support. Indeed, when the real stories are told about the recovery, and a bit of it will be said, the names of Clifton Reeder et al. Will definitely be enshrined therein. To the people of East Central St. James, who have given me the privilege of being here, and for them it's 20 years continuous service, 5 times and still going. I really want to thank you for the confidence that you have bestowed in me over the years, re-electing me every time by a larger majority on each occasion, and on the last one, 4,200. And I think that's a worthy moment to recall. The incredible work that you've done with us over the years, we've done a number of very important things in the constituency. Education, of course, is the centerpiece of our efforts, and we have educated and provided opportunities for advancement in academia for thousands of children in the constituency. Today we have scholars in every university in Jamaica. Every high school in Jamaica, and we have medical students as far afield as China to graduate within a year. And I'm proud to say from my constituency, around me in the team of my own immediate leadership, are students who graduated from the East Central Education Program. The latest one just graduated as a lawyer and is now a practicing lawyer while at the same time working with us. We are very proud of this achievement. Health has been a big part of the program, and we are proud that we've been able to build out a new and exciting possibility for infrastructure improvement in the Rose Hall area, so that now we have a modern health center, and we want to thank the Minister of Health through JSIF for this. And for the first time, the eastern side of Montego Bay now has a modern community health center that can deal with more than 9,000 residents. We're very pleased, in fact, that through the Atlanta Montego Bay Sister Committee Community Program and the Victoria House Foundation, we were able to establish a program for some 138 tablets for 25 centers across the constituency, involving, in addition, 25 personal computers for the young people of the Adelphi area. My Ed's Tulips, who continue to be the guiding star in the constituency as they move from house to house, dealing with social problems. And these young people I'm so excited about because they are so committed to the social development of the areas. They deal with the elderly. They try to assist the sick and the needy, and they carry through the care package programs that have been going in the constituency, particularly during this period of the pandemic. Last but by no means least, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my immediate family, who have been a source of great motivation and support to me. My dear wife, Carmen, of 48 years, and my son and grandchildren have stuck to me through thick and thin. and I am glad that we continue to enjoy happiness together and good health. Madam Speaker, my presentation today will be done in two parts. Firstly, I will focus on the state of the industry. Then I will move into the policies, plans, and activities that are being undertaken to continue recovering stronger and sustainably from the COVID-19 pandemic. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to share that the global tourism industry figures now indicate that we are well on the road to recovery from this pandemic, which undoubtedly was one of the most economic and social crises of our lifetime. Governments across the world face tough choices on how to balance livelihood and lives, which required unprecedented action and global collaboration. According to the UNWTO, global tourism experienced a 4% downturn in 2021 compared to 2020. And that is to say, Madam Speaker, it fell from 415 million, in fact, to 400 million. In addition, if international mobility and travel are resumed by June of this year, Madam Speaker, the 62 million jobs lost in 2020, and this is very important, could be returned before the end of 2022, therefore powering global economic recovery. Global tourism's direct gross domestic product rose by 19% in 2021 to 1.9 trillion, as each tourist spending, Madam Speaker, increased, and they stayed much longer in destinations. Meanwhile, travel and tourism could generate this year, in global terms, $8.6 trillion US dollars, according to the new research by WTTC, which is a 6.4% increase over the previous period and only slightly below the pre-pandemic period. Madam Speaker, the Caribbean itself saw the best performance of 2021. In fact, we had an increase of 63% over 2020, with the same distinct destinations, showing close action, and Jamaica in particular, Madam Speaker, was a star in all of this. The Southern Mediterranean and Europe increased by 57%, Central America increased by 54%, North America only 17%, Central Europe 18%, but these numbers, Madam Speaker, must be measured against the background that these are the two largest markets in the world, among the two largest. So their percentage increase, although it's not so high, doesn't reflect the number of individuals who have actually come back into the tourism space. So the CTO, which is our Caribbean tourism organization, remain bullish about the recovery of tourism in the region, with the expectation that the industry will bounce back to pre-pandemic levels by 23-24. So, Madam Speaker, if we continue to work together and maintain our coordinated approach to marketing our destinations as safe, seamless, and secure, we can achieve a true rebound by pre-COVID to our former pre-COVID levels. Madam Speaker, like tourism economies globally, the pandemic and related containment measures hit Jamaica very hard. And this resulted, of course, in a staggering loss of jobs, businesses, and earnings across the industry. In 2020, Jamaica's economy declined by 10.2%, and the hotels and restaurant industry declined by 53.5%. Tourism ended the year with an estimated loss of $2.3 billion US dollars. In 2021, although the fallout was not as great, the estimated tourism loss were a staggering $1.6 billion US dollars. The good news, Madam Speaker, is that like other world tourism economies, our tourism sector showed early resilience and an ability to rebound quickly with a steady growth in its visitor arrivals. Indeed, Madam Speaker, in 2021, we showed significant promise as we started to recover from the impact of the pandemic. The PIOJ for January to December reported that we added some 4.4% to the growth of our GDP, i.e. the value added for that period overall. And of that, tourism through hotels and restaurants led the way with a 36.4% overall. Followed by, of course, construction with 9.1, agriculture and fisheries at 7.9, and the rest of the statistics are there. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the tourism sector, and more specifically hotels and restaurants, recorded 3 solid quarters of consecutive growth for the fiscal year 21-22. And I'm sure we are, when the results come out for the last quarter, the fourth quarter, we will show that tourism has recorded 4 consecutive quarters of growth. And just for the record, the first quarter, April to June, tourism grew by 334.6%. July to September, 114.6%. October to December, 76.2%. And the projections that we have, which are not yet official, and PIOJ will no doubt come with that, is going to show that we are in high double-digit growth again for the fourth quarter. This, Madam Speaker, is indicating that at the end of 2021, we brought in 1.6 million visitors and earned $2 billion for Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the period January to December 21, Jamaica earned 5.5 billion Jamaican dollars from GATT. You know what the GATT is? And I wanted to make this point, Minister Clark, because it will help the opposition spokesman on finance as well as, I'm sure, the leader of the opposition in understanding the revenue projections that you made in your budget presentation. So in 2021, tourism provided $5.5 billion for the guest accommodation room tax and GCT. And when compared to 2020, which was only $3.1 billion. So what we had in that 1 year was a 77% increase in tourism revenue just from GATT alone. So now, when you add everything together, Madam Speaker, and you look at the contribution overall for airport charges, taxes, cruise taxes, TEF collection, and the GATT, as well as the general consumption tax, what we found was that tourism, which in fact had contributed $54 billion of that revenue in 2019, was actually down, and the minister said that, to somewhere in the region of $13 billion in 2020. And in 2021, we went up back now to 42, and we are trending based on not just the numbers that he has put in, but the fact of how the industry is growing to surpass the 2019 contribution of $54 billion Jamaican dollars to the revenues of Jamaica. So I think that will help you very well in understanding why is it that our Prime Minister of Finance could come with another budget with no new taxes. Madam Speaker, as tourism industry continues to grow, it is proving to be a year of great importance for us. I want to make the final point in relation to that performance, Madam Speaker, in terms of the workers, because it is to be recalled that we lost some 130,000 workers during the pandemic. And I'm very pleased to advise that the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association is estimating now that 90% of the workers of the industries have been brought back into full-time in the accommodation subsector alone, and 70% of the workers in the attraction subsector are back on the job. According to Statin, the total tourism labor force for October 2021 was 153,200, which represented 89% of the 2019 tourism labor force, which was 170,900. So, Madam Speaker, so as tourism industry continues to grow, 2022 is proving to be promising. Year to date so far, in the first 3 months, we have seen over 480,000 stopover and cruise visitors, with weekend after weekend of record arrivals in the last few weeks. This should see, Madam Speaker, the closing of the first 4 months, which is our traditional tourist season, with 925,000 stopover arrivals and cruise, and for the country to earn $1.17 billion within that period. I'm pleased to say that we're expecting to close 2022 with total visitor arrival of 2.92 million for a total revenue of 3.58 billion. And Madam Speaker, it's important to recognize the value of this earning, because if you recall, when the pandemic hit, we had earned 3.7 billion, and that was the highest peak in our earning. In this first year of recovery, we are now projecting to be 3.58 billion, just under 200 million shy of our best performance ever. These figures, Madam Speaker, underscore that the tourism sector is a driving force behind Jamaica's post-COVID-19 economic recovery. According to Statin, Jamaica achieved impressive growth of 6.7% in the fourth quarter of 2021. And tourism, of course, led the way in driving significant growth in the overall economy and other industries. For the fiscal year 21-22, based on the recovery, the tourism sector contribution to Jamaica's revenue approximated 70% of the 2019 to 2020 revenue numbers. This signals strong recovery of the sector and the importance of its contribution to government revenue and the economy. Madam Speaker, the improvements reflected, in fact, the impact of increased demand, particularly from the tourism sector itself, which has grown with the relaxation of COVID-19 measures, as well as the steps taken to improve the output from the sector. I'm extremely proud of how our tourism sector and partners like the JHTA rallied in the midst of uncertainty to get the industry back on track and to get our tourism workers back on the job. Because of this hard work and unity of purpose, the future of tourism is looking bright. So as COVID-19 control methods become less severe, we expect the industry to grow significantly. In March, the requirements to obtain travel authorization through JAM-COVID or the Visit Jamaica platform was eliminated, which had a direct and positive impact on our industry. Madam Speaker, as the global spread of COVID-19 lessens, removing travel-related quarantines and travel authorization requirements, I think, are essential steps towards loosening our travel restrictions. The UK, Canada, and many of our Caribbean and regional counterparts have already dramatically loosened once tight travel restrictions. We are certain that updated entrance requirements will strengthen the appeal of Jamaica as a travel destination of choice, allowing the tourism sector and the wider economy to continue to recover. And I want to pause here, Madam Speaker, to pay tribute to our teams led by our Prime Minister himself, and I'll have more to say about that, including our Minister of Health, the Honourable Christopher Tufton, and the team from the Ministry of Health, the Minister of Security, Minister of Local Government, the Minister of Transport, and I could go on, the entire Cabinet, for the concerted effort and the combined strength that we offered in managing this process. As a matter of fact, you know, I could go on and on just talking about that and how the world has looked on with envy and admiration on the way in which the government of Jamaica has managed this crisis. And I know that the opposition played a role, Madam Speaker, and I do not want in any way to reduce the effectiveness of their participation and contribution, because we don't always contribute by saying yes. We contribute greatly sometimes when we even differ on points. So I want to pay tribute also to the team from our loyal opposition who have given support in all of this exercise. So, Madam Speaker, we now intend to move forward with some new targets. You recall that we had established the 5x5 prior to the pandemic to get 5 million visitors, to earn $5 billion US, and to increase by 5,000 the number of rooms and our employment to 125,000, and we wanted to do that in 5 years. We started in 2016, it should have ended 2021, but it was overtaken by the pandemic. So now, Madam Speaker, we are going back to our growth targets, this time with 2025 in our vision. So we will sustain this growth that I indicated to you that we started since the recovery program began. And Madam Speaker, as we pivot for tourism dominance, we will be facilitating investments, strengthening linkages, investing in human capital development, diversifying our tourism product, building out a supportive tourism infrastructure, and creating a destination assurance framework that assures an authentic, safe, and seamless visitor experience. Madam Speaker, I will expound on these areas as I continue with my presentation and to show how we plan to create a framework for growth that is more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. Madam Speaker, the pandemic has presented the industry with the greatest challenge we have ever encountered. All our prior accomplishments, as well as effective strategies, policies, and plans, have laid a firm foundation on which we must now build back even stronger to meet the new demands of the post-19 tourism industry. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to announce that Jamaica has been named one of the world's fastest recovering countries and the Caribbean's fastest growing tourism destination. This is due to the raft of effective health and safety protocols and our innovative resilient corridor. The resilient corridors, Madam Speaker, which cover most of the island's tourism region, allowed visitors to experience more of the country's distinctive offerings, as many COVID-19 compliant sites across and along the corridors have been approved by our health authorities for visits. Since the reopening of the tourism industry in June 2020, and I want to make the point, Jamaica is the only country that opened its borders in 2020 and never closed throughout the pandemic to date. So the establishment of the protocols governing the corridors have kept both guests and workers secure, resulting in Jamaica becoming one of the most sought-after destinations. It is fitting, therefore, Madam Speaker, that the Center of Disease Control, and I want you to listen to this because it's a tribute also to our health authorities and the minister, that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, commonly called CDC, which is the National Public Health Agency of the United States, yesterday classified Jamaica Level 1. On their COVID-19 threat level system. And if you recall, we were at 4, just on the edge of being declared a place never, never to go. And within a short time, we are now at 1, and I think this is the absolute best position for any country to be in. And it puts Jamaica in an elite league with just a handful of countries globally for our very low COVID incidence rate. Madam Speaker, let me take the moment to repeat the congratulations, because it is in order, to our Minister of Health, our Prime Minister, and the entire team for this tremendous job that we have done. And nevertheless, Madam Speaker, this is not the time to get too complacent. In our space, the Tourism Vaccination Task Force, which we established, will continue the facilitation program for tourism employees to be vaccinated across the country. For we are still cognizant of the fact that strains still exist, and they emerge from time to time, and that vaccination remains the only protection that we still have in a broad way. So the team under Permanent Secretary Jennifer Griffith and President Clifton Reeder will continue to operate and to ensure that we strengthen the level of vaccination among our tourism workers, which incidentally, we did a good job with, if I'm allowed to say so, because we are up to 70%, which is more than double the national average. So, Madam Speaker, Jamaica continues to further entrench its position as a leader on the international stage over the past year. This has been achieved through the considered and deliberate effort of the Jamaican government in its bilateral, hemispheric, and multilateral engagements, coupled with the strong intrinsic value of brand Jamaica. Even as the Tourism Ministry remains focused on our mission for inclusive and sustainable tourism that will influence innovation and economic growth for the benefit of all Jamaicans, we have long recognized that tourism is more than an economic vehicle. Tourism has great potential as a tool to foster partnership and diplomacy in the furtherance of our vision for Jamaica as a developed country. To this end, Madam Speaker, the Ministry has sought to ensure Jamaica's presence and strong participation in relevant regional and international fora to keep Jamaica top of mind as a global tourism leader and secure consideration of national tourism priorities in the broader global discussions. The Ministry continues to engage actively in the work of the Organization of American States in the area of tourism, and in our capacity as chair of the Inter-American Committee on Tourism, Sectoral, and also as chair of the established working group for the development of a recovery action plan for the airlines and tourism industry. In addition, Madam Speaker, Jamaica's leadership of the UNWTO Regional Commission of the Americas ended with the virtual hosting of the 66th session of the Regional Commission in June last year, with the physical presence of ministers of tourism here from Barbados, Saudi Arabia, and elsewhere. Madam Speaker, as you can see, we have been active over the past period in this area, and we will not rest on our laurels. In this regard, the Ministry recently established a Department of Tourism Trade and International Relations to build on the tourism diplomacy and improve coordination of tourism participation in the international arena, with close collaboration, of course, with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And you know, Madam Speaker, sometimes because the Minister is not in this chamber, we overlook perhaps the tremendous contribution that she is making in the international sphere, and particularly her work in this pandemic and the recovery efforts. And I want to use this opportunity to pay tribute to our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator the Honorable Tamina Johnson-Smith. Madam Speaker, Jamaica continues to maintain its status, indeed, as a global leader in resilience and sustainability. And we are preeminent in this area. So when we announced on February 17th as a Global Tourism Resilient Day in Dubai, Jamaica made history. The annual day will focus on the ability of countries globally to develop the capacity to adapt to international shocks and to predict their responses with more accuracy. It was also to assist countries, Madam Speaker, in comprehending and reducing the effects of these shocks on their development, as well as managing and recovering faster. Madam Speaker, it is not only that it is well known that we established the first ever global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center here at the University of the West Indies, but also that the rest of the world is taking note of it and also embracing other centers in their space. And to date, we have 4 other centers in 4 parts of the world: in Nairobi, at the Kenyatta University, in Amman, for the MENA division, that is the Middle East and the Northern Africa, at the Amman National University, and that institution we named the Talib Rifai Center in honor of a former Secretary General of the UNWTO, who was in fact involved with us when we established the center here in Jamaica. We are proud to say that we had at Expo in Dubai perhaps the first and most significant global conference on resilience in tourism. And we were able to get the support and approbation of the World Travel and Tourism Council, the UNWTO, the Pacific Area Tourism Authority, the Caribbean Hotel and Tourist Association, the CHA, the United Nations, as well as the Organization of American States. No other, and I say it with great pride and much humility, no other country has had that level of endorsement from all the major gatekeepers of the world for any single event that it has done. And I think that it is a tribute to all of us. Madam Speaker, we continue not just to provide technical guidance and support, but we also made sure that we were recording and codifying the effects of our work and the effort that we have put into repositioning currency. The result of which is Jamaica is the first country to have codified any response to COVID-19 in the tourism space. And we are proud of this book, which the Executive Director of the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center and myself co-edited, and we launched it in Dubai, in Amman, in Canada, where we established a center at George Brown University last week, and yesterday, on Sunday, at the University of the West Indies, when Professor Beckles himself launched the book. We're excited about this. We go to London with it end of the year, and there are 5 other countries that we will be establishing resilience centers over the next 3 months. Madam Speaker, the development of a sustainable framework and strategy to help boost tourism resilience and increase its sustainability during times of crisis is indeed in high gear. When it comes to sustainable goods and services, the initiative will include policy, regulatory and institutional framework, as well as suitable inducements to promote supply and productive capacity. This will address shortage, and this is very important, I will have more to say on that later on, supply shortages, allowing us to keep a larger portion of the industry's foreign exchange earnings here in Jamaica. And I'll have a little bit to say about that later on. Among our priority policy in this year, Madam Speaker, which we are finalizing for this year, will be the well-spoken of and all sometimes abused, if I'm allowed to say so, water sports policy. And this has caused quite a bit of concern, although it represents a very critical area of the tourism experiences for which there is a demographic that is really very strong in terms of its earning capacity. The Ministry, in collaboration with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, has developed and implemented a climate change and multi-hazard contingency program, very critical in the frame of dealing with resilience. We have also established a destination assurance strategy and policy, first country in the region, Madam Speaker, to do such a project. And we are very proud that the Cabinet of Jamaica has approved the white paper and the green paper, and we will be taking this to this Honourable House in due course. And this is the text that will guide destination assurance during this immediate post-COVID and indeed the COVID period. No other country has a document of this sort at this time. Madam Speaker, we have also developed the policies on networks. And this is very critical because it is the networks that are going to bring what we call the moving parts that make tourism functional and that offers the scope for jobs and for more innovative actions and innovative ideas and creative output that brings economic value and enrichment to our people. So we were able to convert, as you know, the Tourism Enhancement Fund into an agency that is focusing now heavily on the networks, focusing on linkages, focusing on training and human capital development, focusing on innovation and risk management, and focusing on small and medium tourism enterprises, driving the process of human capital development in that small and limited space, but also providing resource support through the Exim Bank for the funding of creative ideas by these small and medium enterprises. We, in the process, Madam Speaker, provide showcasing arrangements too, to enable them to show off their goods, to connect with their buyers, to develop contracts, and at the end of all, to be able to identify economic returns from these activities. Madam Speaker, we coordinate many programs also with the World Bank and with the IDB and other multilateral agencies in order to bring capacity to the small and medium tourism partners, especially in deep rural Jamaica. So the whole business of broadening our base of understanding of what happens in rural Jamaica and how, in fact, the small enterprises can insert themselves better in the tourism value chain is part of the study that we are doing through the help of the World Bank under their Ready To program. We also have the development of an integrated base geographic information system, that is GIS mapping, so we can know where the suppliers are, we can know where our young farmers are, we can know where our craft entrepreneurs are, we can know where artists are, and we can tie them into a central database so that they can ensure that they get supplies sold and help for development. We are also updating the existing community tourism toolkit. So, Madam Speaker, these are many initiatives being pursued by our ministry and its public bodies that will provide a framework for the development of a more resilient and sustainable tourism sector. Madam Speaker, as we view this period, you know, and it's funny, our scientists have been looking at how the world has evolved since what is called man on Earth or Anthropocene Earth. And this is being regarded as the Anthropocene era. And this Anthropocene era has been affected, yes, Anthropocene, you know, like anthropology? Yes, man on Earth, yes. You know, because there were other people before man on Earth, or perhaps other beings. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, yes. Send to the book written by Professor Roots. So, Madam Speaker, you know, it's funny that the world has never experienced a total pause since man. We've had disruptions that covered continents. We recall when there was a great earthquake in Iceland, that the plumes of which covered Asia and much of Europe for 2 years. Vegetation lost, millions of people died. But North and South America were never touched. So this pandemic is the first global event that has touched every continent simultaneously. No one had a chance to give a story about how we managed it, even how it is affecting me versus you. But what it did was to pause the world And so the scientists have called that the anthropause. And that is a period when nothing happened really, you were at home. That the animals got a chance to roam the wild well without any hunters. The ocean was there without being traversed by ships polluting it. The fishes got a chance to grow better. And man in general breathed and breathed well. But it had implications because it stopped movement of people, it stopped trade, it stopped economic activities, it stopped productive activities, and it affected tourism perhaps more than any other industry on earth.
House Leader, we had... Check it. Or House Leader. Take it off. We have been benefiting from a beautiful sectoral presentation from
Madam Speaker,
our Minister of Tourism.
may the Speaker's time be extended to allot him sufficient time to complete the presentation.
Member Mallow, Fourth Minister, I was actually going to ask House Leader if he could stand up and request additional time for the Minister of Tourism.
You know, Madam Speaker, I suspected that was what you were about to do, but I thought on this occasion we would save him that duty.
Thank you, Minister. The question is that the Minister's time be extended to allow for the completion of his presentation. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister? Thanks, Minister Bartlett.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thanks to my colleague for allowing the extra time required and indeed for their kind indulgence. So, Madam Speaker, at the point we were referring to the fact that this pause of 2 years plus that the world has seen has affected tourism disproportionately in terms of other industries. Madam Speaker, as a result, the COVID-19 lockdown caused drastic global reduction in human mobility. The cruise ships stopped, the airlines stopped flying, and all dramatically reduced services across the world. Cities were shut down or faced curfews, which caused a lock-on effect on air cargo and global trade. The ecological effect of the replenishment of flora and fauna, improvement in the quality of air. We saw cleaner rivers, as I indicated earlier, less noise pollution, undisturbed and calm wildlife. But that was the pause. But now, Madam Speaker, we are out of the pause and we are into the pulse. So we are now into anthropulse. And Madam Speaker, 2 years later, as restrictions are gradually being lifted, a surge in travel activity beyond pre-pandemic levels now seems imminent. The world is going back in high gear. This reversal and lockdown effects globally could cause a global spike in human mobility, which scientists have referred to, of course, as the anthropulse. People are keen to make up for time lost over the last 2 years, planning to see friends and family, catch up with work commitments. So this pulse, Madam Speaker, is now quickly revealing the effects of the pause. I want you to listen to this carefully. So the effect of this time, we are seeing widespread global supply and logistic chains disruptions. We are seeing great impact on commercial and personal activities and human resource constraints. And here in Jamaica, in our tourism industry, we're seeing that. The workers of the industry have not been coming back in a uniform way. Some have gone into their own personal endeavors, become entrepreneurs of their own. Some have morphed into other industries. Some have migrated into other space for good reason, that we train and develop their capacity and offered them portability so that they could go and peddle their wares anywhere in the world. And as a result of that, we are seeing something of a negative employment situation in the industry at this time. Some hotels are really low on their staff recruitment. I wouldn't want to indicate some of the numbers that have been coming to me, but the implications of that is very clear. Implications in terms of efficiencies, implications in terms of the quality of the service that is offered, and implications in terms of the competitiveness of the destination in the long run. And that is on the human capital side, and we will talk about that later on. But in terms of the supplies side, in terms of the material goods that are critical for the operation of the tourism plan, there are these issues as well. So that we are finding that there's shortage of beverage, there's shortage of food, there's shortage of all sorts of resources that are critical to maintaining the strength and quality of the experience of the visitor in the destination. So we have to respond to that. And I'm very pleased to tell you that the Ministry of Tourism has spent some time thinking through this process, Madam Speaker. And I want to make a proposal because I think that this is something we have to look at carefully. Jamaica is in the mode of developing the logistics hub. And our special economic zones represent an opportunity for us to look at tourism supplies logistics as a critical area for development. We have established ourselves as a premier destination with competence. We understand what is required to make the industry move. But nearshoring opportunities that will allow for Jamaica to provide much of what is required for the Eastern Caribbean and also for the countries within our space that have similar products as us is looming and inviting. And I'm proposing, and I've in fact established a team headed by Wilfred Bagaloo to study and look at the establishment of a tourism supplies logistics hub to be positioned in the free zones of Jamaica to enable production for our local market as well as the international market. Bagaloo has done some work on it so far, and we are putting some dollars together, and we're coming to you, Minister of Finance, because we have to now look at some fiscal architecture that will allow for this to happen, and even for a recognition that tourism is in fact an export industry, and to be given and accorded the fiscal arrangements that are consistent with the export sector. So we're looking forward to that. I have had discussions in Dubai with one of the largest free zone management team, and they understand what is required. And I just want to indicate that sometimes we underestimate the breadth and the expanse of the tourism activities. And we tend to feel that tourism is about housekeepers and bartenders. Important as they are, critical. But tourism embraces aviation in a big way. It embraces maritime activities in a huge way. It embraces the Internet of Things, and we have to understand that the future of tourism is going to be predicated heavily on the Internet of Things. It's going to be a new world of virtual experiences, you know, where augmented reality and mixed reality is going to play a big role, where robotics is going to define the extent to which service provision is enabled in hotels, where you're going to find that Siri is going to be a big lady in tourism, directing traffic and enabling an understanding of how to traverse your areas. So the use of machine intelligence as a driver of the future of tourism must be understood. And so therefore we have to begin to train and to build the capacity within our industry to understand this, to be able to manipulate the cognitive systems and to be able to stay ahead of the game. The hope, Madam Speaker, is that out of this effort, we'll be able to attract a wider range of skill sets to appreciate the value overall of tourism. Because this logistics center that we're talking about will not only be about movement of goods, but it will have to do also with managing technology and marketing. Because much of the marketing expenses that the tourist board, for example, have to carry now outside of Jamaica can be procured right here. Because the technology is no longer proprietary, as knowledge and information moves from the center to the periphery. Everybody now has access. Everybody now is linked. And with this little thing that I usually carry around and you hold in your hand called the Apple, everything is possible. In fact, it's moving to your watch. It's probably to even smaller gadgetry. Data and the management of data is going to define the way forward. And that's the new power, data. And tourism, we understand that. So we have established our Tourism Recovery Task Force. And this task force, starting with the logistics hub that I mentioned with Wilfred Bagaloo as chair, we have a market and investment committee headed by John Lynch. We have the protocols team, and we continue to carry protocols because we can't avoid that. We're still in a pandemic. And notwithstanding the good work that has been done and the level of management that we have attained and the respect that we've gained in the world, we are still in a pandemic. So one of the very, very powerful consultants from Pricewaterhouse, which we engaged very early in the game, from as early as March 2020, to work on protocols with us, Jessica Shannon has agreed to continue to chair and to head that committee. Entertainment events to be headed by Delano Seavright. The Economic Capital Market and Debt Management Committee, and I want to make an emphasis on this, because during the pandemic, the term we use in the industry is that we bled cash. We bled cash during that period. And some people said we burned cash during that period. And we ended up having to deal with debt, which was acquired in the previous period when there was growth and ebullience and everybody's spirit was high. Private sector debt, of course. When we say we. I think you point very well, Minister, not the ministry. The industry. And so now we had during the period various mechanisms and tools that we worked with. And we had the banks, for example, and the financial institutions who were offering moratorium on debt, who were lowering rates in some instances and so on. But that period has passed. And now you have to recover, pay back your debt, deal with the cash flow issues, and grow. And that's a tough call. And therefore, we've established a team under John Miles, again with Wilfred Bagaloo and a number of other people from the banking sector, to look and examine how we could develop a debt and market capital mechanism, perhaps a special purpose vehicle that could perhaps capture all the debt that is there and to put it into a particular pool and to arrange some fiscal maneuvering. Minister doesn't like to hear me say that. I mean, Minister doesn't like me to say it. But some mix, as I would put it, some mix of policy, fiscal and other arrangements to enable a managing of the debt in a manner that will not cause further disruption in the sector. And then we have the Legislative and Regulatory Environment Committee, which is headed by Chairman Ian Deere. Then the labor market, and this is very important, the labor market committee, and we are tying into it digital transformation. So we are saying the labor market and digital transformation for the reason that I mentioned as to where the future of work is going and how we see the tourism sector evolving over time and the role that technology is going to play in all of this. So we have Professor Lloyd Waller chairing that committee, and then we have a public communications committee which will be headed by Kingsley Roberts. Madam Speaker, the whole purpose of this is to develop a framework, a full framework, that will enable us, firstly, to look at the workers of the industry and the training capacity and the human challenges that we have within that space. We want, Madam Speaker, to see and examine properly and recognize and appreciate that over the past 2 years, there has been a seismic shift in the labour market with regards to the availability of workers, their needs, and the requirement of the tourism industry. Following the fallout from the pandemic-induced disruption to the tourism industry, many of our workers, as I said, found employment in other economic sectors. In addition, foreign players have been coming to the country to recruit our skilled tourism workers. As a result, we have lost 20,000 workers over the period, Madam Speaker. And we're not crying about it because it has been for their benefit. But we make the point that it creates a gap. So while it will be difficult for us to hold back these market forces, Madam Speaker, we continue our efforts in 2021 to train workers in the hospitality sector, as this is critical to resetting of our tourism industry and meeting the staffing needs of our over-expanding and ever-expanding industry. We are committed to producing a competitive and productive workforce that can take advantage of possibilities in the tourism and hospitality business. Madam Speaker, over the period we established the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation. We have trained 2,000 individuals who are now fully certified in hospitality services, spa supervisors, safe serve professionals, customer service professionals, and hospitality and training management aficionados in many regards. Madam Speaker, we've established the first ever associate degree program for high school students, and this is very important, that we were able to graduate 177 high school students a month and a half ago with associate degree in hospitality and customer service management, the first in the history of our country. The purpose of enabling this certification program in general is, of course, to build the portability of your workers, but also to enable them to have mobility within their workspace. We are committed to changing the labor market dynamics, not by way of legislation, not by way of forcing the market to act in a certain way, but by building capacity within the market that it cannot deny on the basis of equity and merit. And merit is critical, and that comes from training, certifying, making competent, and making qualified the workers of the tourism industry. And once they are merit, we say equity demands that they must not be denied. So that we will then fight to the last to ensure that the workers, the Jamaican workers, access to the highest levels in the tourism industry because of merit and equity. And that's the basis on which our training, so those people who believe that we should legislate, that you should never have workers from abroad or anywhere else doing any job, that's not the answer. The answer is to build the capacity to make sure that the merit that your workers have cannot be denied, and then you ensure that it isn't so. Madam Speaker, in developing capacity overall, we have also looked at how it is that our training must be relevant and what it is that we need to do to make sure that all elements that have capacity within the industry can be absorbed in the areas through the same two methods of merit and equity. And so, Madam Speaker, our Prime Minister, having recognized that there is a gap, in discussion with us and in looking at how we can help to fill that gap. And he made a point in his budget presentation and told the country that I would add value to what he said in that regard, that we are looking at how to ensure that the entertainment sector in Jamaica become more deeply involved and embedded in the tourism value chain. And already, Madam Speaker, we are training DJs for the hotels. Already we're training others, and we've graduated them in this way. But I think that tourism, like all other specialized areas of activity, require specialist skills. And every industry that is serious about upgrading and upskilling provides an opportunity for training, specialized training, where you're bringing people who have experience and who also have theoretical knowledge, the folks that we call pracademics, pracademics like us, who are both practical in terms that they are on the job and competent, and they are academics in terms of the pedagogic skills that they might have, and so on. So we bring them together, and the whole purpose, therefore, then, of establish this entertainment academy in Montego Bay at the convention center is to bring that mix together, so that we are training tourism appropriate entertainment providers. And we're not at all, saying anything negative about current institutions that are training, musicians and dancers, and creative artists and so on. No, by no means. But we're saying also that in order to ensure that we have fit-for-purpose arrangements, in order to ensure that we're training you to respond to the varied tastes of the industry and the demographics. Because in any given hotel at any time, as you know, there's a generational mix, and also ethnic mix, religious mix, and all sorts of mixes. And therefore, we have to make sure that our entertainment responds to that in general, and therefore, we will build the capacity so to do. So we are going to be putting $50 million this year in that whole process, so we could build out a facility which is fit for purpose to enable training in that particular area. Madam Speaker, the other area of critical importance for us in this regard is the building of ideas. And I ask you to permit me to make a point on this, because it is so critical. The future of tourism is based on ideas. Ideas is what define newness, innovation, and authenticity. And we are an industry that must always be authentic. And every time I go to a marketplace event, the first question that I'm asked is, what's new in Jamaica? What's different? What it is that you bring to the table that nobody else has. And so our job must be to be the cradle of that idea development, idea molding, idea honing, idea management, and the release of that idea in terms of conversion into material goods and services that is different and authentic. And so we have established, and I'm very happy that we are going to be part of this bigger policy initiative of the Ministry of Finance with regards to encouraging innovation and the development of incubators. And so last year, when we mooted the idea first, we started to do the thinking on it. And we are very happy that this year, Madam Speaker, we will be working with the Ministry of Finance and its team in relation to that, to build out effectively the innovation-based tourism incubator. And that's very important, because we'll be looking and examining, along with the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center, a partnership to do groundbreaking initiatives in intellectual property, debt and equity grant financing, to look at prototyping and product development, mentorship, and skills development. But we want to make the point that our idea is to find ideas out there, young people who have no financial backing. We're putting $31 million, Jamaica, into the program this year, as we seek to find, through high schools, through community engagements, young people with ideas but no financial support. And we bring them to the table. And we look at those ideas. We match them with industrial and with commercial activities too. And what we do is to provide them with leadership and direction to, in the first instance, the Exim Bank, where we have put $1 billion Jamaican dollars for the purpose of assisting small and medium enterprises and young people with ideas. Madam Speaker, the future of the world and us is predicated on that capacity within our human beings. Idea is the most powerful thing on earth. It's an awful thing to waste. And we are investing in ideas in tourism because that's the basis of the Blue Ocean strategy that we're talking about. To ensure that we can compete in another space, not in the space where everybody else in the Red Ocean where it's bloody, but in a new and dynamic area where we are different and extended, and we are seen for the special and peculiar offerings that Jamaica provides. So, Madam Speaker, in concluding on the issue of our human capital development strategies, the tourism industry continues to work with our workers in developing social solutions. And perhaps the most significant of them all is the historic, mandatory, and I want that point to be understood, tourism workers' pension scheme. And that pension scheme, Madam Speaker, is a game changer in terms of providing a social safety net for the workers of the industry. And these, when you talk to the workers, they will tell you the pain that they have had over many long years of toil in different areas. And at the end of that period, they end up in penury and unable to deal with their basic human requirements. That will stop. And by providing $1 billion Jamaican dollars to seed the fund, we have created a group of contributors called the Augmented Contributor, who we will enable, after only 5 years of contribution, starting at age 59, to be able to get a pension equivalent to those who would have been paying from age 19 or 20, as the case might be. And that is a record that Jamaica has set and a standard that we have provided. And I must warn that those in the industry or anywhere else who are giving any pushback to this initiative, Jamaica is not going to take kindly to you and your activities. I cannot say it any stronger than that, because it is coming to me that there are some elements. And I want it to be clearly understood that this is not just a groundbreaking activity on the part of Jamaica and global tourism. It is a seminal and critical social legislation that is key to worker security and the future of our people. And it must be respected by all. Madam Speaker, the building out of housing and, creature comforts for the workers is a very important part. And I'm very proud to say that we have been investing in tourism housing. The Tourism Enhancement Fund began with a $1 billion allocation, if you recall, as way back as 2010, when Prime Minister Golding was the Prime Minister. And we have continued that program. And we are proud to tell you that we have provided housing support and also settlement support for hundreds of tourism workers. And at the moment, we are in Grangepen providing 535 families with settlement arrangements, providing road, water, telephone, light, well, not so much telephone, but definitely light and sewage system. And that will be done. And then we go to Negril, and we go also into St. Anne. And we are moving around the island each year with a different project to enhance the capacity of the workers of the industry to have a better standard of living and quality of life. Madam Speaker, investment in the tourism industry continues, and we are very proud. In fact, the Prime Minister and I only this morning, before we came here, met with one of the largest investors that is currently on the island. And we were going through the plans for the Princess Hotel and Casino in Green Island, and a very exciting prospect of 2,037 rooms, well on the way with construction to employ in the end nearly 4,000 people. This is the kind of development and investment that we continue with. I could, Madam Speaker, enumerate the many, starting with Princess, of course. We have 2,000 rooms coming with Hard Rock. We have 1,000 rooms coming with Sandals from beaches in St. Anne. We have the Viva Wyndham to the north side of Negril with 1,000 rooms. We have Rio in Trelawney, in Falmouth, 700 rooms. That groundbreaking will be done on the 20th of April. We have the new Secrets Resort for Richmond in St. Anne with 700 rooms and 280 rooms, also Secrets Dreams, as it is called, in Montego Bay. Bahia Principe to have expansion, and a number of others, a total of some 8,500 new rooms to come on board within the next 5 years. Madam Speaker, this will be the largest wave of tourism development and expansion in the history of Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we are satisfied that notwithstanding the COVID disruptions, the investment climate in Jamaica remains strong and buoyant, and the appetite to invest in Jamaica is very strong. Madam Speaker, cruise tourism will now take off. And you know we have had problems, and perhaps the segment of tourism that's been affected most by the pandemic has been the cruise. And as the ships stop sailing and the issues of protocols really works hard, and the CDC and everybody were very strong and firm, and cruise has been an ecosystem for virus development and so on. Now that we are in the pulse, the Anthropulse, cruise ship is back. And we are very satisfied that Jamaica is preparing for it. The Prime Minister in his presentation indicated the steps that the Port Authority is taking to expand and improve the port facilities across the island and to enable Jamaica to develop to become a particular home port. And we're excited about that home port possibility. We've started already with the AIDA coming out of Europe, that home ports in Montego Bay on the weekend. Now with Montego Bay, Falmouth, Ocho Rios, and the Prime Minister has given instruction with regards to Port Antonio for the development of a port of call in Port Antonio. And the Port Royal, which had a ship only last week, Mariella, and we're going to have more calls there. Jamaica needs one more port that we're working on the South Coast, Minister Green. Yes, on the South Coast, and then we would have a full multi-port, not modal yet, coming up to modal, but a multi-port destination that will allow Jamaica to have its own itinerary. So now you can come to Montego Bay, go to Falmouth, then on to Ocho Rios, then to Port Antonio, over to Port Royal, into St. Elizabeth, and then back to Montego Bay, and you would have had a full. And the good news here is that we have the capacity for it, because we have each destination with its own peculiarities. Madam Speaker, we continue to build the capacity of Jamaica to be connected to the rest of the world. And this is the essence of what our marketing is all about. It's about how do we ensure that Jamaica can be reached from any part of the world. And I'm pleased to advise you that during our marketing blitz in North America, American Airlines executive confirmed as much as 17 non-stop flights per day on many major routes to Jamaica, from Miami, Dallas, Charlotte, Chicago, Philadelphia, and several other critical gateways. Madam Speaker, we continue to work with other airlines, JetBlue, and out of Canada we have WestJet, and now we're looking at some new airlines that are floating, providing opportunities for new destination of entry from Canada into Jamaica, out of the West Coast, Halifax, and areas like those. Madam Speaker, a new Caribbean Jet Air from Curaçao is intended to also begin operation. We have one weekly flight out of Switzerland. We have flights out of Zurich. We have flights out of Frontier is offering new non-stop service, Madam Speaker, from Miami, Atlanta, Orlando, and other places to Montego Bay. And now they want to give us 2 to 3 weekly direct flights from Denver, Colorado, into Montego Bay. Eurowings, Madam Speaker, Europe's largest point-to-point airline, began its inaugural trip on November 3 from Frankfurt, Germany to Montego Bay and Sangsters. Madam Speaker, TUI, Belgium, which is one of our largest partners, continue to provide the Dreamliners Boeing 787 into Montego Bay with roughly 300 seats on a daily basis. Madam Speaker, we are looking to new markets. We are looking to new markets, and we are also looking to new destinations. And I want to make the point now. And I hope that Mr. Mike Henry is not here. Oh. But I hope he's listening. Because I think Jamaica puts itself now in a unique and special position in the Caribbean, in that we are the only country in the English-speaking with 3 international airports. Now we can have direct flights from the United States, or a key market, from Canada and elsewhere, to 3 locations, so that Jamaica now can be accessible within an hour and a half from 3 points of entry. Norman Manley International Airport, 1 hour to Ocho Rios. And when the South Coast Highway is done, through St. Thomas and into Portland, 1 hour to Port Antonio. We'll be able from Ocho Rios, an hour and a half to Port Antonio. From Ocho Rios, an hour to Montego Bay. From Montego Bay, an hour to Negril. What a country. We'll be connected all around by air. Hold on, you don't understand. You don't understand the marketing importance of that. When I go, hold on, guess what? Lisa, yes, read the book. You know, it's funny. You know how long Montego Bay was the only place that existed in Jamaica? You know how long, and you will remember this with a little chuckle. You will remember this with a little chuckle. How long Negril, for example, was the only destination. I remember in the 70s, people were flying and said, I'm going to Negril. So when they reached Montego Bay, and they said, okay, you're in Montego Bay. So, okay, which flight do we have to take to Negril? Because as far as they're concerned, Jamaica was Negril. Well, we are going to get a Rockabessa on the map. We are going to get Boscobel on the map. We are going to get Galena on the map. We are going to get all of St. Mary on the map. Because in our wider discussions and in looking at how we are structuring the destinations in Jamaica, that with the new airport, and Mike Henry, I want you wherever you are to take credit. Hello, Mike Henry, wherever you are, I want you to take credit for that vision of having Bobby Montague, wherever you are, I want you to take credit because you were there assiduously working at it. And now the new minister, Audley Shaw, who is the man who actually signed the document. He was there with me. He was there with me when we got the team from American Airlines to agree that on the 5th of November, 2022, the first flight from Miami to Boscobel will be inaugurated. So, you know, Madam Speaker, what that does is to open up the entire eastern side of Jamaica for the tourism that it was always intended to be. And so the Prime Minister has announced what the plans are for Portland and Port Antonio. That fits neatly into that process as we build the infrastructure for it. But St. Thomas, and I have a bit on St. Thomas here, the new destination, St. Thomas, Madam Speaker, is now ready. And we are going to be spending somewhere in the region of about $305 million overall in developing the infrastructure for the new destination in St. Thomas. So St. Thomas, Portland, new areas for us. And we are going to emphasize in that area, Madam Speaker, low-density tourism, high net worth, a new demographic that will be big spenders. Go back to the days of the rich and the famous. And we are going to have lifestyle tourism in that area, and we are going to call it the Jamaica Riviera. So we are going to have a new look based on a new approach that brings new jobs and new facilities in there. Madam Speaker, Devon House. Devon House is the gem and a real treasure in the city of Kingston. And we are very proud that Devon House is now being positioned as the gastronomy center of Kingston and arguably the Caribbean. We are spending $102 million this year on building out the courtyard to facilitate the commercial activities that are within that space, but also to provide a commodious arrangement for the commuters and the visitors and the friends who have to come in and to enjoy themselves. Devon House has always been the poor man's place, the place where we go to as children with our little girlfriend and boyfriend and sit down and have a moment, take with pictures and so on. Devon House has been the people's house. And we are going to make sure that the people have a fantastic house and a great surrounding to operate with it. And so we're spending this extra. We're going to build a pop-up kitchen, which is a new concept, where we will invite you to come in and cook. You're coming from church with your family? Come and cook. Around you will be all the commodities that you require, everything. We'll have a chef in situ, and this chef will not cook, but he will guide you how to cook. We're going to use that to bring thousands of guests from all over the world. And a part of it will be to make sure that our teams in Jamaica understand the importance of building family. And this is a very important point, because, you know, so many times families get missed because they don't have anywhere to come together regularly. It's an important little point that we mustn't miss. And Devon House will be that point where families can come and families can cook and eat together at the pop-up kitchen. Madam Speaker, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, as I indicated, was morphed into a new entity. And we are now looking at a number of mega projects, one of which, of course, is the redefinition of the hip strip in Montego Bay. We are looking at how we can reconfigure that whole area to create a new experience in line with the Harmony Park that we just did in conjunction with the UDC. The Harmony Park now provides perhaps the finest area for our people, not just tourists, our people in Montego Bay, Minister Davis, our people in Montego Bay who can go every Sunday now, every day, family and friends, and enjoy a beautiful beach, a great ambience, and can have fun. And we are going to add to that experience a new-looking hip strip that will redefine the waterfront of Montego Bay in that area. $1 billion has been allocated for that. We are going to be looking at expanding Ocho-Rios arrangements. Minister Smith, we are going to be spending some more in enabling the experience in Ocho-Rios to be more in line with the quality of that destination. We're going to be spending resources on creating new facilities in Falmouth, building better the wonderful artisan village which you have there, theming it and completing that theming to ensure that the first port of call for tourists from the cruise will be the artisan village. Because at the artisan village we'll have artisans in situ, whose job will be to take designs from tourists as they come, execute on the design while they are gone to have other experiences, and on their return, collect their finished work, pay for it, and pay properly for it, and go back with a piece of Jamaica on their person. And this will provide a great conversation piece, among other things, and a huge marketing tool. Because when they go back to their countries, the questions will be asked, wow, where did you get this? Jamaica. And who was the artist? Peter Phillips. Wonderful. Eh? So we will be looking at how to create greater linkages with our small and medium enterprises, provided means by which more resources are provided to enable the small enterprises. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that 80% of the tourism experience is driven by small and medium enterprises. The tragedy is that only 20% of the returns of tourism go to them. So we want to reverse that. That's an anomaly. That's an asymmetry that is not tolerable. And so we are spending the time and the effort to do three things. One, to train, educate, and broaden their horizon to create more dynamic, diverse, and unique cultural offerings. Secondly, we're providing them with financing through the Exim Bank, the Jamaica National Small Business, and other vehicles to enable them to have low rate credit so that they can spend more resources on building out the capacity of their products. And finally, to provide a marketing arrangement for them through the various entities that we have. Madam Speaker, in closing, Madam Speaker, I want to indicate that the tourism market is one of the constant and accelerating changes elements of the world today. Important trends such as hyper-digitalization, the increasing demand for immersive experiences, the growing sustainable travel movement, the sharp preferences, Madam Speaker, based on the contrast of the various generations. Madam Speaker, we know that many of what has taken place today is not necessarily caused by the pandemic, but have been the consequence of the pandemic. And we want to deal with it and to expedite the responses to it. There are also threats to the industry, with a growing belief among many climate scientists that we have entered the Anthropocene era, with impacts on our natural environment being foremost among those threats. Madam Speaker, the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan, which we are now developing with the support of the IDB, will help us to boost the competitiveness of our destination and products, enhance resilience, as well as develop and deploy mechanisms to promote innovation and entrepreneurship within the sector. Consequently, moving the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan towards finalization during this fiscal year, Madam Speaker, is one of the most critical planning objectives of my ministry now. To accomplish this, we will facilitate greater engagement with a wide range of stakeholders in the public and private sectors, with stakeholders in the 6 resort destination, with investors, with entrepreneurs, to identify opportunities to advance the extended outcomes of the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan. Madam Speaker, last year the Blue Ocean Strategic Framework was introduced. During the current financial year, the Ministry will continue its implementation of this groundbreaking strategy. It will guide the process of gathering data on the shifting preferences of our visitors, provide for suitable accommodation and experiences, ensure that we have suitable governance arrangements to deliver these, and critically, train a first-class workforce to share our world-leading goods and services with our visitors. Moving forward, Madam Speaker, the Ministry and its agency will deliver a number of initiatives flowing from this Blue Ocean Strategic Framework. These include resilience building through business opportunity continuity plans, the innovation incubator that we spoke about, the tourism supplies logistics center that we talk about. Madam Speaker, we have plans to upgrade our public beaches, and I didn't name them all. Murdoch Beach, we have about 6 of such beaches. We're going to be spending over 200 million. And we have Paget. Paget is on the list. Just or Paget? Niger? It's all on the list. And these will include, Madam Speaker, Watson Taylor Park Beach, among others. Other critical elements of strategy will be in intensive work to develop new markets in continents such as Asia, Africa, and South America. This will assist us over the medium to long term to cushion fallout in our traditional market. At the same time, support for the development of small and medium tourism enterprises will be expanded so that a larger number of participants can reap a greater benefit from the tourism industry. Madam Speaker, I mentioned the new premier destination of St. Thomas, but just to close by saying that we intend up between now and 2030, and the member from St. Thomas, he's not here, and the member is very much over there. Right. 4,170 new rooms for St. Thomas. 230,000 overnight visitors we expect to have. 244 million US of visitor expenditure. 22 million US in tax contribution to you. 13,000 total direct and indirect jobs. 174 million full contribution from the tourism to GDP, sir. And 508 million of private investment. And the private investment has started. I think you heard it last week. That rock. You heard them? You remember? $1 billion of investment into new villas in St. Thomas. And that's the media. And finally, 33 million in public-private partnership. So, Madam Speaker, by applying the Blue Ocean strategy to reset tourism, the sector will, within 2 years, return to its pre-COVID-19 performance with record arrivals and tourism earnings. This will ensure that our vibrant tourist sector remains the driving force behind Jamaica's post-COVID economic recovery. Madam Speaker, and I just want to say this to the member from Northeast St. Catherine, baby pool is on the cards. 10 million for a baby pool to be developed. So with the relaxation of our COVID-19 protocols, covered with the aforementioned strategy and policy, it is now time, Madam Speaker, for us to let go the bird. And this symbolic, if not only looking forward, Madam Speaker, to a complete recovery, but to thrive, because when you let go the bird, my bird flies. And so, Madam Speaker, the industry will thrive, and we will thrive beyond the pre-COVID levels. We will therefore continue to push forward with a spirit of hope for a brighter future, with a prosperous and prosperity, Madam Speaker, for every Jamaican. Together, we have the opportunity to build forward stronger. The seeds have been sown for prosperity. Tourism for a shared Jamaican prosperity. May God bless you and bless Jamaica, land we love.
Very good
Thank you,
presentation,
Madam Speaker.
Mr. Bartlett.
Mine is the duty to... Give him a break. Madam Speaker, we will continue this sectoral debate by asking you to invite the member from Northwest Manchester and opposition spokesman on transport and other things to make his presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Member Phillips, before you commence, Member Phillips, we took note after we began the session today of approximately 15 students here from Mile Gully High. We'd like to welcome you to the sitting today. believe the students from Mile Gully High are accompanied by a teacher. Welcome to the house. There are other persons sitting in the gallery. Some I recognize having come out to support Minister Bartlett in his presentation for tourism today, and some who are here for Member Phillips. Member Peter Phillips, it is a pleasure to see you in the house today. Welcome. Yes, we missed you. Member Mikael Phillips, Manchester Northwestern, you may commence your presentation, sir.
Hearing me now? Madam Speaker, you know, no matter how long you're in the House, every day is a new learning day. You learn new things. And today I've learned that I'm never to speak after the Minister of Tourism, Minister Ed Bartlett. So normally I speak after the Minister of Transport, and I said, let me shift up things this year. But whoa, what a lesson I have learned. But well done, Minister. And, you know, one member uttered, you know, Minister, that it is better, he likes you more when you're traveling than when you're in the House. Madam Speaker, I want to express my appreciation to the Leader of the Opposition for his continued confidence in me to shadow the portfolio of transport, works, and now housing. I also want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the House who have counseled and offered advice on matters of state. Madam Speaker, I want to say that my continued presence in this House is only made possible by the constituents of Northwest Manchester, who have maintained their confidence in my ability to represent their interests. Madam Speaker, I want to specially welcome the students and teachers from the Mile Gully High School, which is the only high school in Northwest Manchester. And as some of you would have seen in the media, where the Minister of Education came to Mile Gully High School 2 weeks ago to see for herself the crisis that Mile Gully High School currently finds itself in needing a new school plant. It is a school that is over 100 years old, and as have been said by the Ministry of Education in a report a few years ago, that the Mile Gully High School only has 4 habitable classrooms. Yeah, you have been there, Minister, for 730 students. And it has 15 feeder schools from in and around Manchester that feeds that school with students. So imagine where we have to displace other students to go to other schools far away from their homes in Northwest Manchester. But every year that I have been able to speak in this House, we have always had students from Northwest Manchester, from Mile Gully High School, visiting upon us. And because of the coronavirus and no visitors in the gallery, they are here with us now, as we are now. They couldn't come last year. And so I welcome the students from Mile Gully High School. As I have stated many times before, I'll do my part to make them proud. I want to thank my understanding family, my wife Shelley, who is in the gallery. Last time she came here, I recognized her as my wife to be. She's now my wife. My daughters, Isabel, who is not here, and Gabriella, Gigi, who is here, preparing for CSEC exams. My brothers and sisters, my father, who has been my rock. My mother, Sandra, and my mother, blessed memory, Minnie, and my friends. It is difficult to survive in politics without a supportive family. So I want to hail all our families who have given us the support. Madam Speaker, at the outset of my contribution to this annual sectoral debate, I would like to comment on the annual budget process ritual. It is a process at the foundation of our democracy, but at the end of the day, it feels like taxation without representation. This phrase originated in the American Revolution in 1768, when the British Parliament imposed taxation on its subjects in America without parliamentary representation, and they protested. In our case, our people are being taxed. Still, they are yet to enjoy the true benefit of their taxation, affirming that the government should not tax the people unless their representatives participate in the deliberations and parliamentary decisions. Madam Speaker, at the start of each financial year, we go through an exercise at the Standing Finance Committee, provided in Section 65, subsection 1 of the Standing Orders. It states, there shall be a committee of the whole House called the Standing Finance Committee. The deliberations of the committee shall be in public. Madam Speaker, I keep asking myself the question, what is the true purpose of this exercise? And what influence do we representatives have in crafting the country's budget? The truth is, we spend days and hours deliberating on the affairs of ministries, with ministers, members of parliament, and senior public servants, examining the budget. But to what end? Can we even affect a single change? Madam Speaker, even when members identify budgetary... Oh, sorry, sir. Deputy. Mr. Speaker, even when members identify budgetary and policy weaknesses, there are no adjustments or positive action on any line item. Frequently, these shortcomings affect critical programs and the lives of the people we represent. The standing order should not only be relegated to a relic document to be referenced in our transgressions, but instead it should be made relevant to all our sittings and deliberations. Is this the best use of our time, Mr. Speaker? The government members attend the committee meetings, but they rarely ask questions because of being under the whip and the established norms. This posture has caused many to question the purpose of the Standing Finance Committee, and we spoke about it. Is this just for us as representatives to rubber stamp whatever budget has been placed in front of us by the political executive and state technocrats? Mr. Speaker, I believe the time has come to re-examine the standing orders to see how we can make the standing finance add value to the budgetary process, to ensure tangible outcomes. It is time to look at how we function in a changing world when more is demanded of us by our people. Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is time to look at our parliamentary affairs. The recurrent budget, Mr. Speaker, for the financial year 2022-23 for the works portfolio is less than the revised estimate for last year, both in nominal and value terms. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, responsible for infrastructure and physical development, has been provided $2 billion less than the revised estimate and $152 million less than the approved estimates of $4.2 billion for the financial year 2021-22. Mr. Speaker,
so what are we going to do?
Well, I'm in advice. Mr. Speaker, $500 million of the approved budget will be taken, of that amount will be taken to fund the long-announced Lengthman program, leaving only $3.5 billion for road maintenance. This is near $1 billion less than what was budgeted than last year. We are in a crisis. Last year's revised estimates were increased due to the end-of-year seasonal work and maintenance of a few roads after the flood rains. In summary, Mr. Speaker, the government has put the maintenance of roads on the back burner, which will lead to many of our roads being in the worst condition ever. This cannot be the Jamaican dream. Mr. Speaker, let us look at the effects of the reduced budget. Last year, the cost per ton for asphalt was approximately $13,800, compared to the current price of $15,500 per ton, an increase of 11%. Yet we are expecting to spend less, but we require more. But it is even more dire than that, because the National Works Agency, their estimates to do a kilometre of road is about $25 million. But the price of asphalt has increased, but they're still using the same rate. So what I said to you, you're going to get less, with less money. This is certainly not how we want to build our Jamaica. Last year in my sectoral presentation, I encouraged the government to look again at re-establishing the Road Maintenance Fund. It is impossible to maintain our current roadways from the Consolidated Fund, Minister of Finance. No government has ever provided enough resources to support our roads effectively within any one budgetary cycle. In 2006, but I will say to you, though, Minister, I'll say to you, that there is no developed country in the world that doesn't have an earmarked set of funds to deal with the road maintenance. There is none. So I would suggest to you, Minister, do the research, because there's no other way that you can maintain the roads by just saying that we're going to plan. Because when you plan and disaster come, you have to deal with the disaster and not deal with the roads. And we are seeing bad roads now, worse than we have ever seen in a long time. So we can build new roads, but if we don't maintain the ones that we have, it will cost us more in the long run. In 2006, the Road Master Plan indicated that our road network was deteriorating faster than it could be repaired due to insufficient funding. As a result, some roads are repaired several times, while others never get any attention.
Very true.
Mr. Speaker, rural parishes are suffering. Let me declare before any mischief that I have no issue with roads and development. However, while we build new infrastructure, we need to ensure that we put a sustainable program to maintain the existing road network. What we do annually is not sustainable, and we are being disingenuous with our approach and shallow and short-sighted in our thinking. Madam Speaker, or Mr. Speaker, there is a narrative. There's a narrative out there, Mr. Speaker, that we do not have any good engineers or contractors to build quality road infrastructure. That is far from the truth. Jamaica has some of the most qualified engineers and contractors, graduates from the finest engineering schools here and abroad. Still, successive governments have given them a bad deal. I said successive. Listen before you talk.
He's a propagandist.
We have now settled. Successive governments have given them a bad deal, Mr. Speaker. We have now settled on quantity and not quality in our roadworks. Hence, the lifespan of newly constructed roads is shorter, and the cost to maintain, and it costs more to maintain. We always say that the budget cannot fund the required quantity and the required quality, yet we take no action. Again, the people suffer. Mr. Speaker, contractors can only build what they have been contracted to do. When the NWA or any other entity designs and scopes a particular project, puts it to tender, and awards that contract, the contractors can only construct what they have been contracted to do. When they deliver substandard work, it is certified by the state agency before payment is made. We then turn around and blame our local professionals. The playing field is different for foreign contractors who do most of the design and cost for the jobs they are engaged to do. They set their standards, and in most instances, the government accepts the costs presented to them and extend concessions on labor, equipment, and material. We believe that the local contractors should be given a level playing field and give them the same opportunities and concessions on specific equipments as we do for others. If we do not level the playing field, we will face a dying industry in the long term. And foreign firms will dominate most, if not all, of our large construction projects. But when you look at our local construction industry, or the construction industry overall, it employs over 90,000 persons. Yeah? Approximately 8 to 9% of the workforce. And contributes approximately 9% of GDP. Producing as much as 70% of the country's fixed assets. Is not an industry to play with. A closer look at the industry over the period reveals that the foreign contractors represent less than 5% of the higher grade 1 contractors, civil engineer contractors. However, they control in excess of 90% of the projects in that grade. Also, in grade 1. Grade 1. Eh? So, foreign contractors represent less than 5% of grade 1 contractors here in Jamaica. But yet still they control in excess of 90% of the projects that grade 1 contractors work. Yeah? Paying very little, if any, taxes, PAYE, education tax, NAIs, NHT, and taking. And he knows he will get his chance. So hence, Mr. Speaker, we need to level the playing field. Sooner than later, we will be subservient to them. Therefore, we must protect our local industries. Jamaican contractors should be helped to fend for themselves and be able to compete locally and overseas. They should not have to defend themselves at home. The best way forward is to make improving the capacity of local contractors a priority. Government must offer some control, protection, and support for the local construction companies, as is done for others. But also, I want to emphasize, I want to encourage the government that we also need to get hard NTA, because more involved in certification in the local construction industry. One of the complaints that we are having, even from our local companies, is a number of unskilled persons out there. Uncertified and unskilled in some sense, because they have to train them on the job. But we need to get them certified, because as soon as they're certified, take the plane on guard. Mr. Speaker, we on this side believe in the Jamaican dream. The situation even more disastrous when it comes to our bridge infrastructure. The National Works Agency maintains some 750 bridges and structures on our road network. Unfortunately, most of these bridges are in poor condition, many of them especially in rural Jamaica. Most of our bridges were built over 60 years, longer than our own independence. Many over 100-year-old, with little or no maintenance. That is why most are failing and communities are being cut off. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, bridge infrastructure requires a serious plan before a crisis. Unfortunately, we have been inserting a number in our budget for years that does not correlate with what is needed to maintain or replace broken bridge infrastructures island-wide. Over the past 3 years, $70 million was the number. $70 million is further projected yearly for the next 3 years. Recently, citizens from 3 communities blocked the Buff Bay Main Road in West Portland to protest their bridge being condemned and blocked off by the NWA while alternate fording is impossible. Mr. Speaker, the Troy Bridge, which is on the border of northwest Manchester and South Trelawney, collapsed in August of last year. That bridge was 125 years old. And the bridge to get to that bridge, which is the Oxford Bridge, is the same age. as the Troy Bridge. And the people now risk their lives by crossing the river on wooden planks made from falling trees. Mr. Speaker, I tried to cross that bridge a few weeks ago when Minister Warmington came to visit Troy. No, he didn't try to. He drove Trelawney way and come around. So he never had to cross. That's why I said Trelawney. Hey. And why? No. I say you did not drive the Manchester route. Let me rephrase. And you started down in Duncan's and you came up. The minister was so upset when he got there. He was so upset and tried to apologize how he treated me in the house when we were in the Standing Finance Committee. Because he didn't realize that I was speaking the truth. But while crossing to go and meet the minister, I fell. Trying to cross the bridge. But Mr. Speaker, seriously, we have 2 schools in Troy. Well, 3. You have the early childhood, you have the primary school, and the high school. If there are clouds in the sky, grey clouds, students on the Manchester side, their parents keep them from school on that day because of how dangerous it is to cross the river. Remember?
How the bridge has been done?
From August of last year. Yet we still haven't been able to get even an estimate for the bridge. But I am holding the minister to his word that we will start the bridge. And he has promised to do it in 2 phases. We say we can live with that. So I am holding the minister to that promise. The estimate to fix the bridge in West Portland alone is $107 million, which has been reported. But yet still there's only $70 million in the budget. The government is giving the National Works Agency basket to carry water. The budget cannot address the problem, and this approach raises questions about the government's seriousness in maintaining our infrastructure. If we do not act now, we shall find ourselves in a crisis worse than we could have ever imagined. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the public transport situation that continues to deteriorate consistently and rapidly due to the legislative and regulatory framework established for the industry's proper management and operational safety. Due to poor policies and burdensome taxation. The Transport Authority, responsible for regulating the sector under the 1987 Act, is not regulating with vision, as its slogan says. The Act needs amendment, and we have been promised this, Minister Shaw. We have been promised to get a new Act, the Transport Authority Act, years now. And its operations are in variance with what is occurring. The Transport Authority contributes to the chaos and the lack of order, as its policy and operational approach have not served the public transport sector well. The Transport Authority ought to build on its research capacity, using data to drive the government's policy for the public transport sector and drive efficiency. Instead, of just issuing license, stipulating origin and destination points, and attempting to enforce. Mr. Speaker, they are not even determining whether there is adequate space for drop-off or pick-up of passengers. These so-called bus taxi parks are owned by the municipal corporation and bear no relationship to the number of commuters. It is causing severe overcrowding in our town centres, with the Transport Authority having no influence. In that chaos, the Transport Authority prosecutes drivers parked in no parking areas for the taxis or buses, as the bus parks are overflowing. Mr. Speaker, there is a disconnect in the management of the public transport sector caused by the lack of foresight. We must deal with this issue as adequate parking in town centres, and it requires more collaboration between the Transport Authority and the municipal corporations.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. 20 minutes. Mr. Speaker, I ask that the member be given sufficient time, possibly 20 minutes, to complete his presentation. The standing order says 15 minutes. You're asking for 20 minutes. You're asking for 20 minutes. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask that the member be given 20 minutes to complete his presentation. Thank you.
The question is, shall a member be given 20 more minutes to complete his presentation? The question is, may the member be given 20 more minutes to continue his presentation? Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There needs to be more collaboration between the Transport Authority and the municipal corporations when we're dealing with the matter of the bus and taxi parks. Collecting license fees and imposing arbitrary $10,000 late charges cannot be all that the regulatory body is about in this huge and important industry. Mr. Speaker, I had a conversation with the Minister of Transport, and I want to again plead with the Minister. At the beginning of the coronavirus, there was a $10,000 late fee for operators who were late in renewing their license. And because of the weight and pressure on them during that period, it was suspended. The late fee, that is. The Transport Authority has seen it fit to bring back that late fee, charge that late fee to operators. But I would like to appeal to the Minister of Transport. At this time, Minister, when the weight of petrol, the weight of the dollar just parts, with them having to subsidize much of the fare for the commuters. Because even though we may have operators out there that give a bad name to many, you still have those out there who are hard-working Jamaicans who just cannot afford at the time when the renewal. So even though that your CEO has said a 2-week, $10,000 tough, Minister. It's tough at this point in time for that late fee. So I'm asking you to reconsider, as they did at the beginning during the coronavirus, when the pressure was on these drivers, these owners, feeling it at the pump now. And the Minister of Finance said that he's giving $25,000 to each operator who has registered. But you can give them 25 in one hand and take out 10 out of the other hand when they're late. So you only have 15. And even though, and even though the 25,000 is commendable, but it is really dropping the bucket, because that is 2 days of gas money for operators. Ask your CEO to roll it back, Minister. Because many have paid it, even though he has said that he's giving a 2-week extension. But also, I saw in the papers on Sunday, License to Party, Transport Authority hosted Christmas shindig for staff despite restrictions. No, Hardy wasn't there. But in the same way that those who lead the Transport Authority and overseeing the regulations and the laws, sometimes we see them come hard, but yet still they are breaking the DMRA. Even though that the DMRA has been withdrawn. This is in December when there was a DMRA in place. Minister, this should not go without an investigation done and those responsible brought to book. Because there can't be one Jamaica for one and another Jamaica for others. Look into it, Minister. We're expecting answers. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the operational and financial crisis that now afflict the sector will lead it into certain bankruptcy. These entities, private and public, dedicated to the movement of people and goods in Jamaica, are experiencing hardship, whether in the cities or in the highly oversubscribed intertown modes. Mr. Speaker, looking comprehensively at the situation, the time has come for a thorough policy evaluating the viability and sustainability of the sector. A study needs to be done. Failure to do this now, Mr. Speaker, will undoubtedly result in continuing financial losses and a chaotic operating environment, which is worse than the post-JOS era of the 1980s, when the lick shot mentality ruled the roost. Notably, the study must examine the coexistence of a major transit company sharing the same operating space with taxis and bus operators, providing stage carriage services, and complicated by illegal operators providing the same service. The study must provide answers to avoid chaotic operations and plot a roadmap for each player to find rewards from a cost-effective, disciplined, and regulated environment. The state of public transport, Mr. Speaker, in Jamaica is haunted by the decision by this government in 2016 to grant an additional 20,000 road license to legitimize illegal operators, particularly in the Kingston Metropolitan Transport Region. Then up to 47,000 seats were provided by legal and illegal taxis, offering stage carriage services in the exclusive area licensed to the JUTC under the Public Passenger Transport Act. This, Mr. Speaker, takes place in an environment where the JUTC is under pain of its own license, requiring it to provide 31,000 seats daily to meet commuter demand for transit services. These additional licenses have only provided a cover for the entry of more illegal operators who now violate with impunity. Yes. The situation is now way beyond the capacity of both the Transport Authority and the small team of police officers from PSTEP, which enforce rules in public transport and stand between the present situation and total anarchy. The operating environment has become menacing, with taxis stopping suddenly everywhere, driving on the right-hand side, stopping at stoplights to let off passengers, pulling out without signals, overcrowding and operating without regard to the road traffic regulations. The viability of the state-run JUTC is seriously threatened, and its operations are in decline. The government cannot deliver on its promises, so pompously announced and thunderously applauded in this House time after time. Among the promises made in previous years, 50 new buses. Up to now, not even one delivered. I only hear says some coming. More electric buses and LNG buses. Since they got those that they added to the fleet, the 5. Not one. One more has been delivered.
You mean just announcement?
Just announcement. 350 buses with Wi-Fi on board. Not even one installed. And even if it was installed, it's not working. All buses would have vehicle locator technology. Not even one working. We have been promised a new cashless system. If you look in the budget, that was tabled and passed. I see it in there again. But that upgrade has not yet even happened. We hear about a mobile supermarket, but that has not even happened either. An effective maintenance program. That are just chat. But they're woefully lacking spare parts. On time and clean buses. Yet another failure to deliver and millions spent. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, regrettably, the minister who made those promises no longer carries portfolio responsibility. Because we would love to hear from him what happened to those promises. And he arrives. However, we have the new minister, and I welcome him with a notice that we need a status report on all those promises made. The public body's estimate of revenue and expenditure indicates that for the last 2 and the current fiscal years, JUTC will cost $21 billion in government of Jamaica subsidies. The company is projecting in 2022-23 to lose $8 billion on its operations, $5.1 billion after government subsidies and depreciation. And, Mr. Speaker, an accumulated loss of close to $100 billion over the 20 years. the company continues these huge losses every year, higher than projected. At the same time, not even 1 year under the Jamaica Labour Party administration has the JUTC achieved the targets set out in its corporate plan. In 2021-22, the company projected to transport 27.9 million passengers. It achieved only 15.4 million. The fare box fell from $4.8 billion when the PMP left office, and that has never been seen by the JUTC ever since. This is an abject failure, and the management structure and the key personnel remain safe in their seats. They say COVID is responsible for some declining numbers, but other factors need to be identified urgently. In the current year, 2022-23, within the economy being reopened, the fare box will only improve marginally to $1.7 billion and ridership to 19.4 million passengers. So, Speaker, I was looking at a operating statement, and it just shows some of the planning that needs to take place and re-engineering of how we operate the JUTC. Because I was looking at the operating statement which came from the JUTC on the Maypen depot. Fare income is $2.278 billion. It has gas, the current year, 129 million in revenue. And they are spending over 2.9, says current year fuel, $2.9 billion. But it's going to make a loss of $17 million. Huh? That is just one depot. Madam Speaker, the situation has reached a point where taxpayers can no longer trust the numbers in the corporate plan being tabled here, as none of the targets is being met. And there is no plausible explanation for the variances. The bus run out is now consistently under 200 buses per day, 200 units per day, with the company achieving an average of 206 for 2021-22. This is coming from an average availability of 450 units 5 years ago. So even though the government has announced the purchase of 50 buses, and you have 200 buses in the fleet now, 50 buses will not even bring it to half of what is really required. It's close to half of what is really required. And we have to remember that we have an aging fleet. And the purchases of the buses are a step in the right direction. But not sufficient to keep the operations of the JUTC afloat. Add the productivity. The KMTR is more than 50% transit dependent. What will happen if creativity, modernization, and realistic planning are not brought to the JUTC's operation? In that case, the company will crash under the weight of bad policies, poor management, and unfair competition that respects no rules and poses a danger to commuters through bad road habits. The Montego Bay Metro is even worse. This company, which should provide transit service to general commuters, students, and the elderly in St. James, Hanover, and Trelawney, is now down to an operating fleet of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buses from 17 when we left office. The plan is to refurbish 3 units to bring the fleet up to 9 for the 2022-23 year. But that is still a drop in the bucket because Montego Bay Metro needs a fleet of 30 buses to provide adequate seats to the Western City. How can an aging fleet of 6 or 9 buses serve the students in these 3 parishes? Even with 17 buses, there were challenges. Now with 6 units and the same in discipline as in the KMTR, what does the government propose to do for those commuters? Madam Speaker, the ministry needs to develop a plan to restore the company and its services to meaningful and acceptable levels. The company is now a shadow of itself, serving the greater Montego Bay area. The government will be providing a subsidy of $245 million this financial year. But unless the operation is brought back to the adequacy it once enjoyed, how can the minister justify this subsidy as well as a $274 million last year, making it $500 million in 2 years to operate 6 buses? Montego Bay Metro is needed to serve the people of our second city. Still, unless the ministry ensures urgent improvement, the operations will be only an illusion, as most students will be forced to take more expensive modes of transport. Therefore, the ministry must do better. Madam Speaker, we on this side start with the principle that decent and affordable housing should be a fundamental right for everyone. A good housing market is a crucial indicator of a robust economy. The reason is simple. Without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. Madam Speaker, nowhere else in the government's plans and programs are there more grandiose promises than in the housing sector. The government has promised 75,000 housing starts and solutions for the 5-year term to 2025. There needs to be more explanation on the numbers presented by the government. There needs to be more focus on the current demand and what is being delivered, especially from the National Housing Trust. The continued announcements about how many housing units will be built by the administration over the next 5 years, as if if there is a competition between administrations to see who can build more, this has not helped the crisis we face. We need to deliver housing starts to our people, fulfilling their Jamaican dream. The housing sector itself is suffering from a crisis of ministerial leadership changes. Shelter is no joke.
The member's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the member's time be extended by 5 minutes so as to allow him to...
Sufficient. That's so finished. Sufficient.
Yes? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We actually passed the 20 minutes, you know. I wasn't too sure how much longer, so that's why we decided to make formal the extension. House, the question is that the member's time be extended for 5 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor?
5 minutes. Aye, okay.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, there's one thing we love to do. It's to set up committees and create reports and policy documents. Still, we ignore the recommendations or implement them in small portions, making them unimpactful on the sector. Concerning housing, there's a draft national housing policy tabled in July 2019. Was it the intention of the minister with the responsibility for housing to bring the national housing policy to the House for a fulsome discussion, or will it die a natural death as in other reports? Prime Minister, the opposition is willing and ready to sit down with the government to tackle the issue of housing. It is a critical issue facing our society now. After reading the draft document, there are few takeaways. If you don't want to sit down, I'm willing to sit with you. After reading the draft document, there are few takeaways that many Jamaicans do not have adequate security of tenure over their houses. The survey indicates that between 20 to 30% of the Jamaican population were living in squatter settlements. That's close to 800,000 Jamaicans. Affordability is central to the gap that exists between the need and the effective demand. The policy also highlights the need for at least 15,000 new housing units annually. Madam Speaker, the data shows that a large percentage of the NHT contributors are in the lower income group. The report, which is still in the draft format, states that this group of income earners has been left out of the housing market. The report says so. We cannot delay much longer, ensuring that a solution is found to provide adequate housing for this income group. Part of the problem is that many NHT contributors may qualify for a mortgage, but do not have sufficient income to service a mortgage exceeding $5 million. By not addressing this market segment, the government will be forced to bear the economic costs, the burden on the environment resulting from the ever-expanding informal settlements. Therefore, there should be some urgency around reversing this paradigm. The NHT will be central to this solution, Madam Speaker. Affordability is the main issue. In his budget presentation, the Prime Minister provided a timetable that shows that the NHT and the HAJ in 2022-23 will deliver only 9,642 units. Madam Speaker, seeing that it is the responsibility of the NHT and the HAJ to plug the hole concerning low-income housing, I ask, how many of these 9,642 housing units will be for low-income earners? I hope, most of them. I hope the administration knows that there's a difference between low-income and affordable housing. Madam Speaker, 43% of household heads in Jamaica have an immediate need for housing. It is essential to bring this into sharp focus before we applaud the aim of constructing 75,000 housing units. Remember, the demand is about 15,000 annually. Again, in his presentation, Madam Speaker, Prime Minister commented on finding solutions to get more low-income housing started using public-private partnership, the public-private partnership model. We believe that this public-private partnership should focus on providing service lots. The cost of putting in the infrastructure would be passed on to the purchaser. This will help deliver housing spots in a formal community with sewage, electricity, and water. We have many communities that have started like that. Nannyville and other communities around Jamaica. De La Vega is one also. We should also consider delivering lots with starter units at an affordable price while taking an urgent look at a cost-effective design for low-income housing. And the Prime Minister said that he has started that process. The increased cost of building materials globally will negatively affect low-income housing starts and middle-income housing, making them less affordable. Madam Speaker, we must therefore quickly recalibrate and reimagine the issue of housing. This is a good starting point while we await the overdue survey on squatter settlements. Squatting also needs urgent attention, not just political announcements. We must learn how to walk and chew gum to build the Jamaica dream, community by community. This leads me to the new policy decision announced by the Prime Minister for the NHT to allow up to 3 applicants, family members, per housing solution in a kingship arrangement. While I am not opposing the policy in principle, Prime Minister, I have questions, including how will it affect the Jamaican nuclear family and their living arrangements? Using the kingship qualification criteria, what is the future of our children or siblings when they want to purchase their own homes? This is important as current policies allow only one benefit. So if my 2 daughters, I pool my NHT benefit with theirs, and my eldest decide to get married, should have lost that benefit because she has already pooled it with me. But I would have a house. No, but I don't ready for dead yet. No, but it's a serious. And I'm not being mischievous, Prime Minister, but it is something to look at. Most children strive to move on to establish independent lives and living. Under this new arrangement, will it be the end of their NHT benefit flow when siblings assist each other to acquire home ownership? I am all for creative mechanisms to facilitate home ownership. Madam Speaker, unless there's a sunset clause, a second mortgage benefit, or an exit strategy, I fear that this well-intentioned policy could be a disincentive to children and younger siblings joining to meet their 3 applicant kingship qualification. Just something to look. But you are using this policy, Prime Minister, to increase. But if it is not going to increase, so all I'm saying, no, your own document says that government policies have not increased borrowing. It has not brought more. So moving it in increments, don't. We need to look at this document, and it's a good document, Prime Minister, but we need to look at it and implement it. In concluding my presentation, I quote from a World Bank report on infrastructure. Roads are the arteries through which the economy pulses. linking producers to markets, workers to jobs, students to schools, and the sick to hospitals. Roads are vital to the development plan. On the present trajectory, Jamaica is off base as no development agenda for our country can be advanced with the current attitude to roads. Inadequate maintenance and no planning for the next round of major infrastructure programs are vital for further tourism, agriculture, technology, education, and housing growth. Roads stimulate trade, location choices, and transport use, shaping the ultimate development outcomes we seek as policymakers and representatives of the people. Along with the roads, Madam Speaker, road environment covers the transport services that impact our everyday economic activities. I've asked for a comprehensive transport policy and operation analysis because we would learn more and be able to give us a sustainable and inclusive growth plan and make appropriate policy choices. Simple matters such as congestion will impact an overall economy unless we begin to get right some of the urgent road issues. Road traffic management is a maiden of road development and a proper approach to Jamaica's complex transport sector problems. In that light, we need an urgent pass. We need to urgently pass the new road traffic regulations to ensure a better operating and regulated environment. If Jamaica is to succeed and be all it can be, I urge the government to be more serious and deliberate in its approach to roads and transport services. Madam Speaker, it is not all about the destination. It is a journey too. And if we take it seriously, Jamaica will find a path and it will find its way. The opposition, too, is willing and ready to participate in a national discourse on housing, as we see this as a critical component for Jamaica's development. We on this side want to see a fundamental change in our society, where everyone, not just a few, can truly say, Jamaica nice. God bless and protect us all at Jamaica, land we love.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker. Yes. Okay. Madam Speaker, we thank the member from Northwest Manchester. If he finally will just settle and realize the House is still in session. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, we want to thank the member from Northwest Manchester for his fine performance, and I would say, Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition, business, and myself had a consultation in the margins of the chamber a while ago, and we have concluded that today is an aberration in terms of the latitude given for presentations. And the member spoke in excess of an hour. So that is probably true. So we say the latitude today has been extended to the leader of the House and to the opposition spokesman today. But as of next meeting, we will revert to the normal order of the day. May it please you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the recommittal of the item statement by ministers to allow the Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, to make his statement. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thanks, House Leader. The question is that we Move for the recommittal of statement by ministers. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Prime Minister Holness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of this House, as well as the Jamaican public, would be aware of my announcement of Jamaica's candidature. In the person of our Foreign Minister, Senator the Honourable Kabina Johnson-Smith, for the post of Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Due to my working visit to the United States, the announcement was made while I was out of the country. I am therefore using this opportunity to place Jamaica's nomination for the post of Secretary General of the Commonwealth on record in our Parliament. Madam Speaker, Jamaica believes in the Commonwealth, its purpose, principles, and functions. Its 54 countries, 2.5 billion people, races, cultures, and great diversity are bound together with the commonalities of the value we place on peace, democracy, development, and of course, our shared language. In this particularly challenging global environment, the potential of the Commonwealth is of particularly great global importance. Madam Speaker, towards the latter part of the initial term of office of the current Secretary General, several countries, including Jamaica, were approached regarding the possibility of nominating a candidate for the post. Jamaica took the view at that time that whatever the issues that gave impetus to members seeking alternative candidates, the first order of response would be to resolve with dialogue to avoid disruption. It is clear that the impetus to seek an alternative candidate strongly persists. Since then, Kenya nominated a candidate and then subsequently withdrew. And today, Tuvalu formally launched its candidature in London. And it is quite possible that others could emerge. We can conclude that the first term of the incumbent has left room for challenge. In recent weeks, Jamaica has had to consider the state of affairs and future of the Commonwealth in conjunction with the incredibly strong encouragement and support to put forward a candidate, and specifically in the person of Minister Johnson-Smith. Whose ministerial achievements in international affairs are well known within and beyond the Commonwealth. Being fully confident in her ability to play that leadership role, I considered it important to engage in a process of consultation, starting with colleagues in CARICOM, to seek a better understanding of their thinking about the leadership of the organization, as well as their views on Minister Johnson-Smith's possible candidature. Madam Speaker, with very limited exceptions, the responses of the heads of government and heads of state, as well as foreign ministers with whom we engaged across regions, have been extremely encouraging. With several of them voluntarily committing to seek support for the candidature from their regional colleagues. On the strength of that feedback, and more importantly, my personal knowledge of the minister's unwavering commitment to public service in the interest of global development, we took a sovereign decision to put forward a candidate that has demonstrated the skill, energy, and competence to bring unity, accountability, and focus to leadership of the Secretariat and the wider Commonwealth family. The chairman of CARICOM, Prime Minister Briceño of Belize, and I spoke on the developments, and CARICOM heads of government will meet tomorrow to revisit this issue, which has been on the agenda of several meetings since 2020. We can unequivocally say that heads are aware that there has never been a unanimous position of support for the incumbent. CARICOM member states have even previously raised the question as to whether we should seek to identify an alternative Caribbean candidate. We believe that Jamaica's candidature, a Caribbean candidate, is good for the region and the wider Commonwealth. We are providing an alternative in response to persisting issues and the strong positive response to consultations on Minister Johnson-Smith's candidacy. Against this background, there is no need to position our decision as controversial or divisive. It is never Jamaica's intention to seek to divide our CARICOM family. And as a result, Madam Speaker, the established processes for dialogue and communication will be the only channels that Jamaica will employ in these matters. Madam Speaker, in some instances, there appear to be a conflation of Minister Johnson-Smith's candidature with the issue of Jamaica's stated intention to move towards a Republican form of government, as well as information emerging about the imminent visit, state visit, of the President of Rwanda to Jamaica next week. Madam Speaker, as early as 2016, my government declared that we would move towards a Republican form of government. And in 2021, I declared a pathway for this to be done. This was before any contemplation of Jamaica's candidacy for the Secretary Generalship of the Commonwealth. Nevertheless, membership in the Commonwealth is not dependent on the Queen being the head of state. In fact, of the 54 members of the Commonwealth, only 15 are realm countries. As we consider the form of our state, it becomes even more important that we ensure that the family of nations to which we belong, with shared values, shared history, common law, and common language, is strong and thriving. Madam Speaker, in 2019, I invited President Kagame to visit in April of 2020. However, the pandemic delayed these plans, which were revived in September last year for the President to visit Jamaica next Wednesday. There is absolutely no correlation between Minister Johnson Smith's candidacy and the state visit of President Kagame. We look forward to hosting the leader of one of the most progressive countries on the African continent. Notably, President Kagame will be the incoming chairman in office of the Commonwealth Conference of Heads of State and Government for the coming 2 years. Jamaica is mindful of the importance of not compromising its neutrality in that capacity, and will therefore not include the issue of Minister Johnson Smith's candidature on the agenda of our bilateral discussions. However, his government has been advised of the candidature through the appropriate diplomatic channels. We have not taken this decision of putting forward a candidate lightly. Indeed, there were many long hours of consideration of the possible implications, not least the significant loss to Jamaica in the Senate and in the Foreign Ministry. However, the Commonwealth, characterized by its several diversities on the one hand and our shared values and principles on the other hand, has served many of the critical development needs of developing countries and small island developing states well through functional cooperation, and as stated earlier, we believe it is even greater in its potential into what we could turn the Commonwealth into for its development purpose. It is important that the work of the Commonwealth be pursued with focus as we emerge from the pandemic. The government of Jamaica is satisfied that Minister Johnson Smith is fully committed to work towards a new era of unity, reinvigoration, and reinvestment in the Commonwealth. She will be sharing her statement of commitment along with her outstanding profile in respect of her ministerial and senatorial leadership, her experience in multilateral diplomacy, as well as her strong negotiating skills. I doubt, Madam Speaker, that anyone would have any reason to question the minister's record of inclusiveness, integrity, and accountability in the management of her current responsibilities. I am fully confident that these attributes will serve her well in the leadership role in which she stands ready to serve the governments and peoples of the Commonwealth of Nations. I am confident, however, that the opportunity that presents itself for her to lead the work of the Commonwealth will redound to the greater benefit of the 2.5 billion persons who comprise the Commonwealth of Nations. This can only redound to the benefit of Jamaica and the region as well. All Jamaicans should be proud of our candidate and candidature.
Opposition Leader.
Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, I preface these remarks by indicating that the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Johnson Smith, is indeed qualified and also has the requisite experience to take on the post of Secretary General of the Commonwealth. It is well known that the opposition is committed to a principle-based, non-transactional foreign policy. We see CARICOM unity and solidarity, especially in the area of international relations and foreign and trade policy, as in our vital interests, as a group of small, vulnerable, developing countries who share a common history and many common challenges. Solidarity and unity among the region has to be nurtured, respected, and protected. This approach has served Jamaica well over many years, enabling our country to build a much-admired reputation as a respected progressive force on the world stage. We are concerned that Jamaica has strayed from this path too often in recent years, including on matters such as Venezuela, the role of the OAS, and even the election of the president of the IDB. The manner and context of the recent announcement of Jamaica's decision to put up a candidate as Secretary General of the Commonwealth has created a very messy and undesirable situation. Since the announcement, 2 CARICOM Prime Ministers have publicly stated that at the recent CARICOM meeting in Belize in March last month, in which Jamaica participated, the CARICOM heads of government expressed overwhelming support, those are the words that were used, for the re-election of the existing Secretary General of the Commonwealth. And I note that that decision of the CARICOM heads of government is formally recorded in the confirmed summary of conclusions of that meeting published by the CARICOM Secretariat. Jamaica's interests would clearly be best served by promoting solidarity and forging the united support of the Commonwealth Caribbean countries. I am therefore compelled to ask 4 questions of the Prime Minister this evening in relation to the Government of Jamaica's approach to this matter. Firstly, when did Jamaica first decide to put up a candidate for the office of Secretary General of the Commonwealth? When was that decision taken? Secondly, if that decision was made before the recent CARICOM meeting in Belize in March, why did the government fail to make it clear at the Belize meeting that Jamaica would be putting up its own candidate for Secretary General of the Commonwealth? Thirdly, does this situation mean that Jamaica's candidate for Commonwealth Secretary General will fail to enjoy unanimous support from the other CARICOM countries, given the level of support for the re-election of the existing Secretary General? Is that the implication of what has happened? And fourthly, Jamaica's candidacy has, unfortunately, been mired in controversy and divisiveness from the outset, as a result of Jamaica changing its position without adequate prior consultation within CARICOM. Could this situation not have been avoided, Prime Minister, by Jamaica properly laying the wicket to ensure that the country's candidate would enjoy full support from CARICOM and therefore have the best chance of success in the June election of the Commonwealth Secretary General in Rwanda? Those are the questions I'm asking of the Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his unquestioned support for Jamaica's candidate, and we note it for the record. And Madam Speaker, we also note the questions that were asked. As I said in my statement, Madam Speaker, which I thought was clear, having anticipated these questions, that almost 2 years ago, there emerged a great impetus for alternative candidates to be brought to the fore. Countries within CARICOM and other regions where we have Commonwealth countries were approached. Jamaica's position, as I've said, is that the first order of response is to ensure that whatever issues there may be, they are resolved with dialogue to avoid disruption. And so Jamaica did not entertain any requests or encouragement. And we maintain that position, even though the issues that have been raised, we noted them. So, Madam Speaker, at the last heads of government meeting in March, the position of CARICOM re-emerged as to whether or not there would be support for the incumbent. No other candidate existed because, as I had said before, that there is this impetus for an alternative candidate to be presented. One such candidate came forward from Kenya. And upon the withdrawal of the Kenyan candidate, before the March heads of government meeting, the consideration would be, obviously, that there is no other candidate, and therefore our support would remain. Since then, Madam Speaker, the re-emergence, well, I can't say re-emergence, has always been, but there has been a strong and persistent perspective that alternative candidates should enter, because obviously the issues of concern did not go away. So, Madam Speaker, as I've said today, another candidate has entered the contest for the Secretary Generalship. Tuvalu officially launched its candidature in London today. In examining the landscape, Jamaica took a sovereign decision. In examining the support that exists, and in examining the future and state of affairs of the Commonwealth, that our entry into the contest for the Secretary Generalship would be in the interest of the region with having a Caribbean candidate, and would be in the interest of the Commonwealth as well in bringing a unifying candidate, a candidate that has demonstrated the skills and competence and the accountability and forward thinking. So, Madam Speaker, I think we should all be proud of that sovereign decision. And if there are disagreements or concerns by our brothers and sisters in CARICOM, Jamaica will not engage in any other means of addressing those other than through the established protocols of the meeting of heads. Jamaica will conduct a dignified campaign. Jamaica will not engage in some of what we have already seen emerging. The intention of Jamaica is to protect the dignity and the high respect for the institution of the Commonwealth and our own regional body of CARICOM. The Jamaican public can be assured that Jamaica always acts with principle and dignity. And so our engagement is to build the institutions, to make them stronger, and to ensure that they are relevant and serve the public and the people better. And I'm confident in the candidature that we have put forward in the person of Minister Kabina Johnson-Smith.
Thank you, Prime Minister. House Leader.
Okay. Madam Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business for the day. So on the motion of adjournment, I would like to advise the Honourable House that I will now move for the suspension of the sectoral debate to April the 12th, when at that time the speakers will be the Honourable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, and Mr. Philip Paulwell of the Opposition. Madam Speaker, the importance of these debates we want to really emphasize, and we urge members to attend and to be on time, because we are maintaining the tradition of prompt start of the House of Parliament at 2 p.m. every Tuesday and Wednesday as of next week. We will not have a meeting of the House tomorrow, but we would resume on the 12th of April. Madam Speaker, the resolution, therefore, for the adjournment is put. May it please you.
The question is that the sectoral debate be suspended until April 12, 2022. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader indicated there being no further business for today. The House be adjourned. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honourable House now stands adjourned.